The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu.
So today I'd like to introduce Miss Emily Reeves from Smyrna High School. And Emily will be talking about incorporating technology in ELL instruction. And so welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Am I good? Am I mic'd? Can you hear me? Okay. So like she said, my name is Emily Reeves, and I'm an ESL high school teacher at Smyrna High. I believe you heard from a couple of my colleagues earlier today. Yes? Yes. It is just a little bit of background. I am completing my 5th year of teaching, which means I still have a lot to learn. So bear with me, and I would love for this to be a collaborative process. But with my 5 years of teaching, I do have experience in teaching sheltered ESL classes, an array of sheltered classes, including ESL US History, World History, newcomer classes, as well as English 4. So we are blessed to have a big program and be able to offer sheltered classes to our students. But what I will say is the title of my presentation is Incorporating Technology with English Language Learners. However, I think that I need to rename it. And it probably should be called A Collection of Technology Failures by Emily Reeves. Everything that you are going to see today represents a failure that I've had with technology in my classroom in an attempt to solve that problem. Okay, I know that whenever I have gone to a beginning of the year in service or conference or anything like that, and maybe you have as well, experienced a whole list of technological resources thrown at your face. And in my experience, this is a very optimistic time, the beginning of the year. You think, oh, I am going to incorporate every single piece of technology. Am I the only one who's experienced that before? Yes, I'm going to use every single piece of technology, every digital resource. I'm going to use it several times a week. I'm going to get my students acclimated to this piece of technology. And then something happens. Reality sets in, and I have found that I have become way more frustrated than my optimism kind of started me out with. Am I the only one? No. Okay, so for a moment, I want you to respond to the following question. What is one thing, or I want you to think about a question, what is one thing that frustrates you about using technology in your class? And then a follow-up, can you think of a time when technology use was a total flop? Okay, just to generate some ideas. The first step of using a computer, specifically with my newcomer classes, the thing that frustrates me the most is username and passwords. I have not figured out a solution for a quick reference to username and password. Does anyone have an example that they would like to share? Or maybe you can just take a minute to collaborate with those around you, or think about it. You don't have to think.
We have like an ESL notebook where they keep all their documents, and all their usernames are like in the front cover, so they know they can see it. And
reference,
stuff.
Duly noted.
And you've had keyboards where you actually practice typing out things, and we practice our spelling and things like that.
We go get those paint samples from like Lowe's or Walmart, and they have the different color schemes on them, and you can put their password and username for all the different, like, because we use like 10 different things, and they're right there for them, and you put them on a key ring. And so you have them for all your classes.
Any other frustrations or flops? Any frustrations? Am I the only one? I must be.
I don't like how long it takes them to like go get the computer, open it up, turn it on, and it just takes so much of like a short
You're
limited
so right.
time.
She said she doesn't like the process of getting the computer, opening up the computer screen. Then at Smyrna High School, we're fortunate enough to have an ESL laptop computer lab that we have access to, which sounds great in theory, but in practice, there's a glitch on the computer. There is one student forgot their username. One student has it taken a picture but didn't write down the correct username, didn't write down the correct password, has the wrong lunch number, has all of these things, right? That whole process frustrates me more than anything. Any other frustrations?
Mine is the Microsoft updates. Our laptops have gotten a little old, so they're
He
constantly
said the Microsoft
like,
updates. The updates.
like freezing now.
Yes.
It's getting
Dinosaurs are gonna
worse
come
and
back.
worse.
It really is. That is something that's so frustrating. Any other frustrations?
I've tried to use like Quizlet Live before, and I put pictures in it to match, and then the pictures don't show up and when we're doing Quizlet Live, and they don't know what they're doing.
Yes, Quizlet Live. I have not used that yet, but I will put that.
It's great
I will
when the
put that on
pictures
my
work.
list. Okay. No, and that's the thing. Things are so great in theory, but in practice, they cause a lot of frustration, right? So, with that said, okay, I have 2 objectives for today. Keep those frustrations in mind and understand that everything I'm going to show you has been a past failure of mine. So, 2 objectives. The first objective for today is to identify reasons why incorporating technology into the instruction of English language learners is important. There's 1. And 2, to construct a technology toolbox for you guys and for me to use in your classroom, okay? So, the reasons, as far as identifying reasons why we need to incorporate technology into an English language learner's instruction is simple. We know this, right? How many of you have newcomers? All right, many of us, I have newcomers as well. I have 2 sections of newcomers this year. Many of us are the first impression for these ESL newcomers, right? We're the first impression when it comes to academic content, the first impression when it comes to culture, the first impression when it comes to acclimation into technology. All right, so we have to take this as a responsibility. We are the ones who are preparing our kids, our students, for classes later on in their educational experience where they are going to have to use PowerPoint. They are going to have to know how to open up a Word document on the browser. They are going to need to know how to send an email. It is our responsibility to prepare these guys for their academic career. Second, reason why it's important to incorporate technology is because we are not only preparing for their academic career, but also their professional career. I don't care what job you choose, from an entry-level position in a restaurant or a multi-million-dollar business, technology is going to be a part of your career, from submitting electronic timesheets to data analysis in a scientific lab. We are going to be using technology. We have to acclimate our students. We have to incorporate technology in order to prepare them for life beyond the classroom. The third reason why we need to incorporate technology is that it is fun for our kids. It's fun for our kids. How many high school teachers do I have in here? Do I have any? Okay, just a few. What is the first thing that your students do at the end of the lesson when the bell rings?
Look at their phones.
What'd you say?
Look at their phones.
That's perfect. Pull out their phones. Look at their phones. All right, and we can have a debate about this a little bit later, and soft skills and things like that. However, kids are using technology, so we've got to find a way to embed this type of instruction in a medium that they enjoy, right? So, with that said, those are the 3 reasons. I should tack on a separate reason. One of the reasons is that our online or our assessments like WIDA Access or the end of course testing that just finished up for us, it's using technology, right? Online assessments. That's another big reason why we need to embrace technology in the classroom. Okay, so with that said, now that we've identified the reasons for using technology, now we're going to get into kind of the nitty-gritty. The first thing that I want to incorporate or to show that represents a failure, a past failure, is computer navigation. Like we were talking about, signing on and getting onto the computers and making sure that students are following the processes. Now, like I said before, we are the ones that need to do this. We are in charge of teaching our students how to navigate the computer appropriately. This requires a lot of time and patience. If you were to come to me in September, after the first day of me introducing how to sign on to the computer and how to access Office 365, I will look so tired and exhausted, and frankly, you might not even want to have a conversation with me. However, it's worth it. It's worth it, and I'm going to show you a few examples of why it's worth it. So, I will tell you what I did before I implemented this model and what I did after. All right? So the failure that I had in my classroom before was I would stand by my computer, I would have the screen, the projector screen displayed for everyone. I'd say to all of my newcomers, can everyone please look at the screen? Now, the first step, can everyone please click this button? So with Rutherford County, we have an Office 365 suite given to the students. But what good is Office 365 suite if they cannot access it, right? So, in accessing Office 365, I would stand in front of the class, I would say, all right, everyone do this. Next step, everyone do this. And do you know what that ended up like? Me walking across the classroom and walking back over here and hearing a lot of Miss Reeves, I don't understand. I don't understand. Where is this? How do I do this? Where is the @ sign? I get a lot of that. How do I make this symbol? They'll just point. They won't even say anything. Okay? So with that said, I had to come up with a way that we could pace, that students could pace themselves independently. All right? So the example that I have here is that I gave visual instructions. So I did this on PowerPoint. I would take a screenshot of the web browser, took a screenshot, used one arrow, and used what they needed to type in specifically. All right? There's still going to be people who don't know where the period sign is or don't know that you don't need spaces in between your web address, right? So with that said, two things, arrow, visual cue, and exactly what they need to know. If you see here, the process, I can give them two options. They can click employee email or go to students. After that, click Office 365. Some students won't know what click means, but you'll have to be the ones to tell them. All right, Office 365. Now this is the bane of my existence because at some point when you are trying to sign on to Office 365, you are going to have to put this whole domain at student.rcschools.net. Now, I don't know how many times I've said, now you don't have an S. Make sure that you go back and include this S in RC Schools, or you've added an S after students. So having a reference page where they can go back to again and again every time is going to make a huge difference. So what I'll do is print out this packet. I'll give every student this packet. I'll put it right behind their syllabus. They have a copy. I'll keep extra copies in my room because they will misplace it. And I will have this out every time we go and utilize Office 365. All right, I refer to this little corner over here, the blue waffle right up here. As the first time I introduce this process to a student, I want them to attach that vocabulary with the action. So blue waffle, click the blue waffle. And then you're able to access all of the different wonderful resources that Office 365 has. Okay? So print it out. I still use paper. I'm not all sold on technology, but print it out, give it to the students, and refer back to it again and again. The next thing that I have found success with, how many of you have heard of Edmodo? All right, Edmodo has its flaws. Edmodo also has its strengths, right? And so what I have wanted to do, first I guess I should explain what Edmodo is. It's a digital online classroom. You can kind of think about it like Facebook for school, all right? So on this platform, we're able to post discussion posts, we're able to incorporate videos, have assignments be submitted, have tests and quizzes and polls be given to the classes. That's a lot of features. My suggestion to you guys, choose one feature. Don't try to utilize everything on a technological platform. Choose one feature and become really good at it. This year specifically, I'm teaching ESL US History and World History. Discussion posts are what I put on Edmodo. And luckily with Edmodo, there's an Office 365 plugin. So as long as we sign into our email first, we can access and create an account very easily. However, with discussion posts, I want to show through the lens of an ELL something that you could incorporate with Edmodo. All right, so discussion posts. We have, so in my ESL US History class, we were talking about World War I and the advances in World War I technology. In my discussion post, I've learned this the hard way. This represents yet another failure, but I've since changed. In my discussion post, I have very clear, explicit instructions. I give 2 things that they need to include in their response, as well as I give a model text. All right, so this is also an addition that I made after I messed up before. So if we see here, they need to include a description of a World War I technology, and they need to include an opinion, all right? I have 1 and 2, and then I have my model. I even told my students, use my model, use the same academic words in your paragraphs as I use in mine, just choose a different piece of technology. This way, I was able to get some really good paragraphs. These are done by students who have been in the country 3 or less years that are in a sheltered class with me. They started their paragraphs in the same way that I started mine, except they changed their personal information. This was a really good way to incorporate one of the 4 domains of writing. The 4 domains of English language, which is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. This was a great way that I can incorporate reading into instruction. Give another example. They even included a photo, which I did in my model, and I didn't even have to tell them to do that. And so something I want to emphasize in today's presentation, if you take away nothing else, take away the fact that our ESL kids can do this. They can do hard things. And we have to be able to just give them the ability to access the difficult things. All right, I've also used Edmodo for video, posting videos and comprehension questions. They can turn in different questions. This is a unit that we're doing a unit in our newcomer classes about wisdom. And I was able to incorporate this video and instruction comprehension questions in this assignment. All right, how many of y'all have heard of Flipgrid? I love Flipgrid. Flipgrid is so fun. It is an educational video app where students can record themselves responding to a teacher prompt. All right, and I'll show some screenshots of that. But I have primarily used it as an activity that we do after we write. So we write maybe on a discussion post, and then I'll have them, if they finish early with their discussion post, they can start preparing for their flip grid. They use the same prompt as the discussion post in the flip grid. All right, so this allows for ELs to rehearse, which is really important, and they can have an app on their phone. All right, so I'm actually going to show some examples of flip grid, of some student flip grids. But this is really important, especially if you teach general education. If your ELs are not participating in class discussion, it's probably because they are scared and they don't want to be embarrassed. And we understand that. So maybe a possible idea is to have class discussion with native speakers, and then after, allow the English language learners to respond via Flipgrid. All right? Or via discussion post as well. If students are not responding in class, if they're not speaking, have them, they might not be required to participate in class, but you can take their grade on Edmodo discussion post or on Flipgrid. All right, so if we see here before, this is closely related with the prompt that I had on my discussion post. They had to explain more technological resources in World War I. This is how it looks on Flipgrid, and I'm gonna let you listen to one of my freshmen. Well, no, this is within the world history class. However, he is responding to the same prompt.
In my opinion, I believe that advances in war technology are positive. First, airplanes are a good form to attack in a war because they can destroy buildings easily. Then, tanks. This machine can transport militaries, armed resources, and this machine have a big power to destroy anything. Finally, submarines are a positive advance in war technology. Submarines can detect enemies for a long distance. This is why I think that war technology is a positive thing.
All right. I don't know if you could understand him quite clearly, but did you hear transition words? Did you hear academic language being used? I heard him say that submarines allowed arms to be transported to long distances, things like that. You can see, if you are going to utilize Flipgrid in your classroom, I would suggest that you have a quiet area. I send my kids out in the hallway, and you're going to see this in this next Flipgrid example. As a part of my newcomer class, you're going to see two newcomers. As a part of my newcomer class, we had to respond on a Word document. Who is the wisest person that they know? Okay, so they have already written this on a Word document. They've shared that with me, and now Flipgrid is the activity that they do when they finish early. All right, this student he has a strong educational background. He's a newcomer, or he's in our newcomer classes. You will see two. This individual is a little bit more, a little higher on the proficiency level scale. The other one is a zero English newcomer who is terrified to death to speak up in class. And so I want to give you that context.
In my opinion, my grandmother is the wisest person I know. First, she is wise because she is old and she has experience. Second, she is wise because she gave me advice that were certain at the end. Third, she is wise because she is a lady that takes things calm and patience. These are the reasons why I think my grandmother is the wisest person I know.
All right, did you hear? One of our academic vocabulary words was advice. Did y'all hear that in his second response? And so that made me, with no prompting, he used that in his Flipgrid. I was very pleased with that. All right, this student might be a little bit more difficult to understand, but at the end of the day, he might not be using perfect English, but that's not what I want. I want him to be comfortable in front of a computer screen. I want him to be comfortable speaking, and that's exactly what I see here. So as far as he's concerned, it's an A+ for him.
In my opinion, my cousin is the wisest person I know. First, he is wisest because he is serious. Second, he is wise because he doesn't not like to talk much. It's good to talk. Third, he is wise because he likes to study English for what is wizard. These are the reasons why I think my cousin is the wisest person I know.
All right, he completed it. All right, he completed it. And he did not get embarrassed. He was out excluded in the hallway. He felt like he had enough confidence to try. That is what I try to instill in my newcomers, that just try, right? So moving on to our next, it's an old friend of ours. It's PowerPoint. We know that we can use this. This can be used, in my newcomer class, I use this for performance-based assessments. Students can add audio, visuals, everything like that. And this is a direct application to future classes. All right, here's an example here. The sound is not on this slide, but I do want, we had a unit at the very beginning in our ESL boot camp where they studied their family. They were able to write and record both of those, or all of 5 people in their family. All right. Quickly, this is a resource I've used just this semester. This is Weebly for Education. I am teaching a sheltered ESL English 4 class, which something that comes with an English 4 class is the research paper. Now tell me how I'm supposed to have someone who has come to the United States in the last 2 years write a research paper with citations, using citationmachine.net, all of those things. This was a really difficult task for me. However, I wanted to make it creative, and I wanted them to feel attached to the project. So I decided, instead of a boring research paper, we would do a cumulative website design this past semester. If you can see, website design disguises work, right? It also allows students to add in their own personal contributions, like photos, and this enhances the final product. This can also serve as a portfolio or a performance-based portfolio. So in the beginning of this semester, I told the students, or I decided that I was going to create logins for all of these students. This is Weebly for Education. That's really important. I was able to make logins for all of them. I made their logins the same as their username and password that they use to get onto the computer. And so that made it really easy to transfer information. With these students, so this is the finished product, but I want to tell you a little bit about the project. We had 5 pages. They were to, this project was called a research paper redefined. They were to create a past, present, and future page that kind of explains or describes their life. So in their past, the first thing that I taught in writing was a personal narrative. All right, and they were able to explain a personal narrative in their past page. They could incorporate photos as well as their document. So here we have, in MLA format, we have their document that they were able to describe and explain their personal narrative or their personal background. Here we have the present. In this mini unit, I decided to teach poetry. In poetry, that's what they put for their present page. They wrote a I am poem. For their future, they had to research a career they were interested in. And they were able to use Citation Machine, and they were able to incorporate in-text citations and things like that. And I think it's because it was going towards a bigger goal of this website design. All right, and then their contact page. In a perfect world, we could have done a complete resume unit. Due to end of course testing and things like that, we weren't able to complete our resumes, but we were able to put kind of a rough, basic educational background, professional background on the contact page. The cool thing about We Believe for Education is password protected. This is not live on the internet, but I'm able to put in a password and have access to every student site that I have in my classroom. All right, the last thing that I want to incorporate is blended learning stations. I learned this from PD that the county put on at the middle of the year. These are stations just like you would have in elementary school. And this represents a failure because I would stand up and I would say, how can I have the students be more engaged? These stations were a big contributor to engaging the students and having them completely engaged throughout the entire activity. I would have 4 different stations, 2 of which be no computer usage. They're reading a book, they are responding to questions, they're practicing their grammar, a grammar piece. This breaks up instruction, and then the other 2 groups, they were using the computers. One station was writing that wisest person document. The other station was doing the listening video of Anansi, how Anansi gave wisdom to the world. So I show this at the beginning or at the front of the class. It's a lot of words, but they automatically know if it says stations and it has these visual cues, they automatically know break up into your groups. Procedures are very crucial for this. At each station, they are given a procedural list of every single step to take. This represents a failure. I tried to do it without this, and it didn't work. All right? Writing. I gave my model text. I gave a sentence frame. Here's our reading station. Here's our comparative superlative. That was the grammar piece that we were learning. And then finished early, Flipgrid. All right, and that's a step-by-step process telling them how to access that information. So, things to keep in mind, have a plan. You will fail. Try again tomorrow. Okay, something that I really like down here that I wrote was, you don't have to use all of these things. Choose just one thing. Even if it's creating visual instructions, choose just one thing. Pick one, adopt it, try it, perfect it, share it. Share it with me, okay? So, we identified reasons why we need to incorporate, and hopefully we constructed a teacher toolkit for you to take back into your classroom and maybe use just one thing. Don't use all of them, okay? So I'll leave you with this. What is one thing that you could incorporate into your classroom that maybe I mentioned today? All right, I'll leave you with that. If you would like access to the presentation, you can go to ateacherslove.org. I have a whole compilation of teacher resources on my personal website, and you can access those documents there as well. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Emily, thank you.